Hello, hello. This is Sandra Villavac tuning in this evening to the first episode of the Stay in the Light podcast. I am Sandra Villavac from Glucose Studios, focusing on human-centered design leadership. And the Stay in the Light podcast is all about ordinary individuals who do extraordinary things on a daily basis because they are choosing the path of radical self-love and following their soul's mission in life. And what this podcast hopes to be able to reveal to its listeners is how people are actually able to do this. So the guest today is Miss Charise Liggins-Walker from SassyChikGeek, talking today about her unapologetic journey, following her soul, not knowing always what the vision is, but trusting the path because it just feels right. She talks a little bit about her super cool business and a lot about the behind the scenes staying in the light. I hope you enjoy. All right, Sandra Villavac here with Stay in the Light podcast. And this evening is the very first podcast with Stay in the Light. And I am honored to have Charise Liggins-Walker here this evening with me. I chose her because it was interesting that our paths were very parallel to each other when we all of a sudden started having these whispers in our ears a couple years ago when we first met that were saying, I think there's something else out there. And I'm really being drawn to what my soul is telling me to do. And I'm feel that there's a need to go towards a deeper purpose in life. And so I thought of you, and I'm so happy to have this conversation today.
Well, thank you so much. I am honored, a little bit stressed to be the first because it's a lot of pressure, but I'm really honored to be here having this conversation with you. And I look forward to just hearing about what this means to you and, how I can, in addition to this conversation, just support how you stay in the light.
Ooh, I like that. Thanks. So for me, staying in the light is a phrase that's always inspired me, even as an artist. So as an artist, I like to paint the light, and I'm like very inspired by rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing this journey of following my purpose, I noticed that there was sometimes some really hard turns or like influences coming in from the outside that were pulling me away from my purpose. And I had to consciously make this decision, which I call staying in the light, staying in my purpose. So that's how this got birthed. And then we were talking before we started recording about there's a lot of folks out there following their radical self-love journey. And, as a design thinker, I love to share the background, like how are people actually doing it? And how are you making those hard decisions to stay in the light no matter what? Because I think you and I also have learned we've tried it halftime before and everything else became a priority and it never worked out. So we had gone in that cycle long enough of saying, like, I have to do this full time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the tip of your head, we'll get into it deeper, but what does stay in the light mean to you?
I mean, I think that when I hear that phrase, it definitely makes me think about not only being inspired and remaining inspired, but I almost feel like in a way it's about knowing that the world can be a very dark place. there are a lot of pockets of the world that there's still room for optimism and enthusiasm and excitement. And so I think that it is also for me about feeling inspired to keep finding the light, even when there is so much darkness around us, especially nowadays, right?
I love that. And I think definitely that's why I found a friend in you, because you inspire me as much. So that's awesome.
Likewise.
Thank you. So that's a great way
Likewise.
to start off. So let's dig into, what are you actually doing? Like, what is the work that you've decided to invest yourself into now?
That is a very good question. And it took many, many years to answer. And I finally feel like I have figured it out for myself. And that is that well, my business is SassyChikGeek, but really my passion has been focused on contributing to social change in some way. And I went on a very long journey to try to figure that out. And I had a lot of different experiences, different work experiences, different life experiences, moved up and down the East Coast, trying to figure out where I kind of fit into this little world that we're in. And I think what I realized is that for me, the way that we inspire change starts from within. And it starts from us being able to live as full human beings. And if we can live as full human beings, then we can then go out into the world to be the change that we want to see. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about what social issues were the most important ones for me to pursue. Is it climate change? Is it social justice, racial justice, all of these different issues that our society is confronted with. And I always felt like, or I always kept going back to this notion that they're all interconnected.
Mm.
And at the same time, I was working in places and organizations where I felt like there were really well-intentioned people that wanted to do good work, but it never felt like we were making the impact that I thought we could be making. And I was frustrated with that, quite honestly. And I struggled with that. And I struggled with it because I think that for me, it all kind of boiled down to, well, how can we show up in the world to be the change if we're struggling with showing up for ourselves?
Mm. And so is that taking life? So I'm hearing from you that you had this journey, that you took your time and you did your self-development, and then you found that that was very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what motivated you to show up for yourself and then to show up for others. So how is that manifesting itself in your current business? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you know what? Even with my business, I think it took me a long time to be comfortable with saying that. And so, how it has manifested in my business is that I've created essentially a whole world right behind me that is really focused on creating space for us to go to think about how we show up for ourselves. So what does it
Mm.
really mean to show up for ourselves? What are the places and the spaces that we need to go to be in to show up for ourselves? And then once we start to do those things, once we start to sort of be more intentional about our personal growth, be more intentional about just pretty much everything that we do, we will then be able to go out into the world and, create change. And so what I do is I use this platform to educate and provide people with tools and resources to do that in a very fun and colorful, kind of way.
Oh, it's already inspiring me. I actually knew a lot about you and your business, but never heard it described in that way. And I'm seeing it as this almost safe space. You said it's colorful, it's friendly, it reminds me of being a kid. And when we were like, we had more intuition and less inhibitions, we had those foundational tools in us where we were being our best selves, and then
Mhm.
somehow along the way we kind of lost it. So seems like you're helping folks to go back to our roots and have this space for growth. That's awesome. That's exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited about it. And I also feel like it is necessary.
Mm,
I think that the world has changed in a real way. Thanks in part to technology, I think it
mm,
has made the world a lot smaller, a lot more connected, but it's also exposed us to, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the world.
mm,
And I don't know that our society, at least our American society, has really done a great job of preparing all of us, whether you're young or older, for the world as it is changing.
mm,
And so, when I before 2020, when I had my business, I really did struggle with talking about this idea of showing up for ourselves because even back then, I was feeling this shift going on, right? There was something happening in the world where things that I thought that I believed in, things that I thought that I aligned with, that my values aligned with, they weren't quite adding up the way that I thought that they would.
mm,
And I was trying to still put forth Sassy Chic Geek as a business and a means for filling that void, but I couldn't even articulate it fully.
mm,
But now what I realize is that part of the reason that this idea of showing up for ourselves is so important is because I don't think we were ever really given tools in a real way to be able to do that. And I do think that it is in part causing some of the strain and the friction and the struggles and the challenges that people are facing. So I sort of have this, for me, it's like there's a sense of urgency to talk about this idea of showing up for ourselves because we actually need real tools to navigate this world instead of just, crashing out on the internet and going viral because we are having a hard time
mm.
dealing with, in this case, the results of an election of something that's supposed to be a democratic process, right? So, like, I really do feel like a lot of that has to do with a lot of us not getting those tools.
Interesting. Okay,
Mhm.
so so you were so because of your self-reflection, the core of it you're saying is when you wanted to do this, you realized even yourself you didn't have the tools. I mean, what was the catalyst that finally empowered you? What happened in the shift in you from 2020 and then you being able to comfortably articulate showing up for yourself? What was that shift in you?
I mean, I think that for me, the pandemic, I mean, I was stuck in the house, right? Like I couldn't go anywhere. Like pretty much the majority of the world, really, right? Like a lot of us were on lockdown and I was away from my family. I didn't really get to see people that I cared about. And I realized that I didn't want to live like that
Mm,
anymore. I didn't want to live a life where I was showing up in environments that I not only was not fully aligned with, but that I just didn't agree with at a fundamental level. And I knew that I couldn't keep moving forward in the way that I was moving forward. So I'll just say really quickly, I'm a first generation college graduate. So I feel like in a lot of ways, I already didn't have a lot of tools in
Mm,
leaving high school and going to college and then entering the workforce. And I'm not saying that as a way to blame anybody. It's just the way it is, right? Like I grew up with working class parents who did the best that they can, and they did a
hmm
great job giving me the tools that I needed to get out of high school and get to college. But I think that from there, I really
mm,
struggled. I had no idea how the world worked at all.
mm,
And I spent a very long time trying to understand how I fit into the world. And so I was very intentional about being open to trying new experiences. I had a lot of jobs. I
hmm
moved a lot. Like I was a little bit of a serial mover. Like I yo-yoed back and forth to New
mm,
York. And so as I started to really reflect on, you start to notice patterns after a while, right? Like, why do I not like any job that I'm in? Why do I not love living anywhere outside of New York City? Like, what are all of these things telling me about myself? Right.
right.
And then, you start adding all of these different world and life events happening, the pandemic and all of these things. And suddenly the world started to come into clearer focus for me. And,
Mm,
maybe there are people that have figured the keys to life out at a very early age.
hmm
I wasn't one of those people. I was sort of in this, I'm a curious person and I want to discover what my truth is.
mm.
And I did. And I also think that Sassy Chic Geek was a way for me to share that part of my life, share how I was showing up to the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. And, I can align with you for sure, in a different way, like saying I didn't feel I had the tools either. And there was so much like external search, and the science, I use the scientific, scientific mindset, like trying to explore the world and try things and fail. But I'm hearing from you, like you really had a lot of courage to try new things. And what I'm hearing is during COVID, when we could only be with ourselves, is when you made the decision that maybe you could look within for that sense of who you are, what your purpose is, and kind of sort out this whole journey and find meaning in why did you have to go through that journey? How did you do it? And maybe how can you provide tools so that others, including the younger generation, can maybe have a shorter route?
Yes. Because that's really what it is. It's really about helping them get, because here's the thing, like we should be exploring and curious and all of those things in our lives. And if we decide on one career path and then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into it, we decide that that's not the course that we want to take, or we decide that we want to live our life a certain way. Maybe we lived in a big city and we're like, I can't do it anymore. I want peace and quiet. I want to live by the water. I want to live in the middle of nowhere, or whatever the case may be. We all should have the right to do that. But I think that if we have the tools early on to know that we can do those things, that at least for me, I would have been a little bit more strategic in how I navigated all of that, right? Like I
Mm,
maybe wouldn't have moved as much. I maybe would have explored or tried other things, maybe just traveled more, right? But I also grew up in a time where, we now see so many people traveling the world and doing all these amazing things. When I graduated from college, I think Facebook maybe was just coming out or becoming popular and stuff like that. And, it's transformed our lives, the way that we communicate, the way that we consume information. And so what I learn and what I see now is so different,
hmm
right? So yeah, I feel like I was just rambling, but
No, no, no. Because really, to tie it up, what I'm hearing from you is Radical self-love is you honoring who you are and knowing who you are. And that is now like put in the package of this magical, beautiful business that you have. And who you are is in your business. And that is what's giving you the power and the passion to move forward with such fierceness that you're going forward right now. Like there's no stopping you at this point. And so I think the radical self-love and putting yourself in it is really sounds like it's your fuel right now.
Yeah, and I think prior to the pandemic, like I said, I've had this business for a very long time. And the idea for Sassy Chic Geek for even longer. And I think that I
Mm,
was afraid prior to the pandemic to own the thing that I created. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of have this platform. I kind of have these ideas about how to show up in the world. And I think that it would be fun and that it would be great. And, I even got really good feedback. I sold, educational programs and stuff like that. But I was still not entirely confident in being able to say that this is what I believe. Like, I believe that for me, as someone who cares about social change and social justice and who was intentional about switching careers, because I started working in corporate America to working in the public sector, that for me, like I couldn't separate the two, right? I couldn't separate how I showed up in the world with how I wanted to contribute to the world. And I think that my moving around and my sort of journey to figuring out what I wanted to do career wise, that they weren't these two separate things, that they were
mm,
for me, they were one and the same. And I would have conversations with friends, and, some of them would be like, well, I just can't imagine doing some of the stuff that you did, right? Like as far
mm,
as the moving, as far as the
mm-hmm,
job hopping and all of that. There was definitely that type of conversation that I've had many times with people, or people were looking at me like, oh my God, this chick is crazy. And maybe
mm,
to an extent, I was a little bit crazy because I wasn't afraid to move from
mm-hmm,
job to job. I wasn't afraid to pack all my stuff up in a U-Haul and move, or
mm,
sell all my stuff and move to a different place. Like I wasn't afraid of any of that. And I think that for me, it was really important to figure this life thing out because we only get one shot at it, right?
right.
And so I wanted to figure out how to do it in a way that made sense to me.
Mm. I love that. I think that's another reason we're aligned. And I don't think that life is for everyone. When you
Yeah.
want to intertwine, you're deeply passionate about life and yourself and how you view the world. And you really think that that is a great thing that you want to share with others. And then you want to bring it into your work. And yeah, most people, I think, don't think they belong together, even though I believe we are in a movement that more people are doing it. I mean, hence that's what we're talking about now. We'll see how this audience grows and how the economy shifts, and the influence of having more purposeful work, what we're doing,
Mhm.
rooted in love.
Absolutely.
So that's quite the oh shoot, that is quite the did you see that?
I saw something pop up.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it says I have 10 more minutes. I thought I had, yeah, we can restart it again too. Yeah. I think I did downgrade because I was like, oh, I always have whatever. But okay. But we'll get through the next question.
Okay.
Okay. So great introduction. I mean, tons of information on what you're doing. And then we quickly already got to who you are and your purpose. So that's amazing. And so I think it's a great bridge to then how are you actually showing up for yourself now? as
Mhm.
this new person? Like, what do you do when you wake up in the morning, to the time you go to bed, day in and day out now, as you're doing this? How are you showing up for yourself? What are things that are important to you?
Well, I would say that when I wake up, mostly during the week, I try to exercise, which is something that I used to do a lot. And when I moved to Maryland, to be honest with you, the past probably 7 or 8 years, I really struggled
Mm,
with exercising consistently. And that was something that I just really wanted to get back to. And
mm.
so, and I am I I would laugh because I would try to do yoga and, Pilates and all of that. And at some point I realized that I'm just not that girl. Like I'm just not that girl. Like I am not. Like what gets me going, what gets all of this, because I have so many things running through my mind on any given day. Like my brain is just constantly going. In order for me to like relax and get it out, I need to like be moving. So I do a lot of like workout like videos and stuff like that, but they're like dance and stuff. Like that's my jam. Like I love doing that. It really gets me going. It kind of gets all of that excess energy out. But anyway, we'll get into that a different day, maybe offline.
Yeah, because I like to dance too.
Yes, I love to dance. So, that is something that is so important for me to do. I try to do it almost every day. I feel like the past month or so, it's been a challenge just because I've had so much going on, but at least 3 times a week, that's how I start the day.
Nice.
Cooking has been
Mm,
a way to show up for myself. Just in terms of cooking new dishes, learning how to cook in new ways, I feel like is so fun and exciting, and it just unlocks all of this creativity.
mm,
Certainly trying to spend time with my family, friends, those things are what really keeps
mm,
me grounded. And like I said, after the pandemic, that was something that I just didn't want to compromise on anymore. And I had to figure out a way to make sure that those parts of my life that were really important were things that I was able to do on a more regular basis than I was doing them.
right. I love that. Exactly. Well said. I mean, you're showing up in a very simple way of like working on your health, your emotional health with your family and social settings, and it's as simple as that, but it's committing to it for yourself so that you do have that time to you. And I know that was a huge transition for a lot of people as well, to say that
Mhm.
that is value to me and value of my life. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think it's been great. I mean, I feel like I'm the happiest that I've ever been in my life, and I don't want to compromise on that anymore.
Wow. That's awesome. Talking about you showing up for yourself every day as your authentic self. And then I asked you to bring an object that
Uh-huh.
represents you showing up for yourself. Did you do that today, Miss Charise?
I did because I like to follow instructions. I am a rule follower.
That's
Even though
awesome.
I like to break the rules, I also follow them so that I
Nice.
can figure out how to break them.
Nice. So what did you bring?
So I bought my iPad.
Oh, okay. Tell me how were you showing up for yourself with that?
So I am in this like era of discovering new music. And I am just in love with the music that I have been discovering and like coming across. And I just am listening to it all the time. And it's so all over the place and it's so like different and unusual in some ways. Some ways it's like what everybody else is listening to, but in a lot of ways, like I'm just discovering so many new artists, really exploring different genres in a way that I just
Mm.
never did. And it's just giving me so much life.
That's awesome. No,
Yes.
I think that's something to be excited about. So what initiated this journey, and like can you share what like different types of music that's really getting you going these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I was just not paying attention to what I was listening to. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I really just wanted to listen to different types of music and just explore music more. I mean, my husband, he is a big music person. Like he loves music. He loves to study it. He loves just all of those things. And so I think that has rubbed off on me in some
Mm.
ways. And so now I'm kind of exploring different artists that I never heard of,
Mm.
getting into genres of music that, you know, maybe like my 25-year-old self would be like, girl, what are you doing? Why are you listening to this? But yeah, like it feels
Mm.
inspiring, it's energetic, it's creative, it's just a lot of fun.
Wow. So all these
Yeah.
different types of music and this exploration and then the different genres are kind of like hopefully like inspiring this new self as well. That's what it sounds like, because music is so inspiring.
It's so inspiring. And I think also too, you know, we get a lot of a lot of mainstream music that we all know is
Mm.
starting to feel like it sounds the same.
Mm.
And so it's been really nice to explore. Like, I mean, I'm all over the map. I'm like merengue, bachata,
Mm.
obviously like more, you know, reggae music, Afro beats, you know, I love Afro beats because, you know, a lot of that music is just it just gets you moving, right? Like you can feel it in your soul. But even like a lot of like British artists I'm exploring, you know, sort of like their like pop rock, you know, kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
Joss Stone, who is like a huge British artist, I feel like I've been listening to her more. And then interestingly enough, I've been getting a lot of my music from shows that I've been watching, like shows that have been streaming and stuff like that, because there'll be something really like aligned with what's happening in that story and the music is just so perfect and it's
Yeah.
so good, so
Yeah.
like I'm like grabbing my phone and shazamming, so like a lot of my music I feel like I'm getting from Shazam, even not
Oh
Shazam but
no.
from streaming
Yeah.
stuff, watching stuff.
I love that. I love that
Yes.
as an artist because something I've been thinking about lately is that no matter what has been going on in the world, musicians have been producing no matter what. And it's like you
And good
think,
stuff.
you know what I mean? Like deep and like evolving and like overlapping and like touching our
Hmm.
hearts and souls in ways that haven't. And becoming very global.
Yes.
And I think that's part of staying in the light of like,
Yeah.
to talk to a musician right now to get that, like how they've continued to just make music no matter what and influence us to show up for our authentic selves, like knowing the power behind that is so important. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I love it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we definitely have to plan on going dancing offline.
Listen, I'm ready. I'm ready to dance.
Oh my gosh, that's such good therapy. Such good therapy. All right.
Mhm.
So the next question, I'm very interested in like what how are you currently creating your vision? So how do you even know where you're trying to go? And like what is that path looking like for you right now? No
Yeah,
matter
right
if
now.
it's clear or not clear, like what does that look like? Kind of like the destination or the path or
Yeah. I mean, I think that right now the biggest goal for me is to like scale my business. And so my vision is to have Satopia everywhere.
ah
I want to reach as many people as I can possibly reach, to spread the gospel of you should be showing up for yourself, right? Like
mm,
in a world that has changed, right? Like because
mm,
I think there are a lot of people that talk about the power of showing up for ourselves and how we show up for ourselves, right? There's not a shortage of people talking about those things, yet people are struggling, right? Like there have been studies, there's research, we have a loneliness epidemic.
mm-hmm,
People are stressed. The Surgeon General at one point, I think it was in September, said parenting is hazardous to your health. Teens are in the midst of a mental health crisis. Like there's all of this stuff
mm,
happening, even though there's all these tools and resources and people out there. So my vision is that um, we need to have new tools because we are living in a world that is fundamentally changed, right?
mm-hmm,
And so, how do we navigate our online identities while we're showing up for ourselves? How do we navigate showing up for work? I think there are a lot of people out there giving you advice about how you should live your life, right? Like you should live your life in this very specific way. And I think that that's not helpful for
mm,
people, right? And I'm one of those people that the way that I feel like I inspire is through action. So
mm-hmm,
it's like if you tell me that you have a problem or there's something that you need, or you are struggling or stressed with something, I am not the person that you come to be like, you got this. I mean, I'll give you that,
mm,
but I'm really going to be like, okay, now what are the specific things that we need to do so
mm,
that you can get there? So for me, my vision is really about growing my business. And, I feel very inspired and motivated, and that I am in the right place at the right time to
mm.
be doing this and to be having these conversations. And so that is really what's keeping me motivated and excited.
I hear you. And that is exciting. I mean, like you said, it's the right time, the right place. You have a solution that you believe in. And so I'm really curious to dig into this. Are you able to share about any of your tools that you have? Like you're mentioning that even if we had tools before, they necessarily didn't align with the needs of right now. So like how are your tools helping us right now in this changing environment?
That is a very good question. I would say that how should I say this? I would say that right now, the way that my tools are currently being used are really around supporting young people and women. So like I have workshops, and then I have like educational programs. And so the workshops are sort of like these like short little discussions. One that I did recently is the power of showing up for yourself.
Mm,
And it was at a conference. And I was like, I feel like when I talked about the power of showing up for yourself in the past, it wasn't well received, right? Like, I would post things online and I would, try to have events and, that kind of stuff. But I was one of the breakout facilitators of one of the breakout session facilitators at a conference. And I was like, I hope that 10 people show up for this workshop.
mm,
and the room was packed. Like we had
Mm,
to turn people away because I think that people are feeling that struggle, right? And so really the conversation was about the different ways that we can show up for ourselves because I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, right? Like your life is your life, right? And even if I think you should be living in a certain way, that doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. So the way that I approach conversations is really about helping to ground us in what's going on in the world. So sort of like a situational analysis.
mm,
You want to start to get into like design thinking and like these business terms, right? So like a situational analysis to say, here's where we are. In a lot of ways, it doesn't feel good, but in a lot of ways, there's a lot to be excited and hopeful for. I'm definitely one of those people that twerks on a fence a little bit because I see this side and I see this side, and I'm like, I don't know which side should I go on. But
right.
anyway, I think it's a helpful, right? Because I think when you can see things from different perspectives, you can help people figure out where they fit into those things, right? Like, I'm
Okay.
not here to say, you know what, Sandra, I think that the key to you living your best life is to really dig into your artistry. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, it might be, but maybe not right now. Maybe there's some other things you need to do. And so I really do try to you know, help people sort of understand like from a situational standpoint and then say, okay, here are all of these different tools and resources that you can use to
Mm-hmm.
get there. Some of them are tools that I have, but some of them might be tools that you need to, go somewhere else to obtain.
Mm.
And so that's really how my educational programs work. And so I do them from, middle school on up
Mm.
in terms of the age group. But it's really about how do you help, these tools that have existed for a long time, these resources that have existed, how do we maybe reframe them in
Mm-hmm.
a way that meets this moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love your Sastopia, and I've seen your products and your all your characters and your work like worksheets and your work sessions and like yes, those are all tools that are so inspiring and I think but what I'm hearing you say is that it's not prescriptive. It's more so a change in how we're approaching it and encouraging saying let's take a learning point of view rather
Mhm.
than like a projection point of view or a reactive point of view or overwhelmed point of view. Let's kind of collect ourselves into this space and keep put ourselves into a mindset that we're open to learning and discussing and sharing and that's a tool within itself I think of what I'm hearing you besides all the other types of things like being in that space like you mentioned before of saying let's listen to each other let's kind of like use our words and put them out in the universe to kind of see how we can share and support each other is that kind of what I'm hearing?
That is 100% what you're
Okay.
hearing. So, if there is anything that I would be trying to convince anyone to do,
Mm.
it would be to learn, right?
Mm.
Because I don't think that I have the power to change someone else's
Right.
life. But if I can give you a framework or a toolkit to do it, then that's what I want to give you. Like
Yes.
I'm definitely you could take what is that sort of old adage, you can bring a horse to water, I
Right.
don't know, whatever
Yeah.
it goes.
But you can't force it to drink. I got you back.
Right, right,
Yes, ma'am.
right. Right. And I feel like actually it's not even just what I feel. There is science based in this. One of the things that I think has helped me feel confident about showing up to the world with Sassy Chic Geek now in a way that I didn't before is because I was kind of going on a whim, right? I'm like, I think these things are important. And I really do feel like they would be helpful for people. But now I feel like I have science to back it. And so I was doing a lot of research around personal growth and personal development. And I came across this personal growth process model,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like this framework for how we think about personal growth. And I would say things like it's important for us to be intentional about how we show up to the world, because when we do those things, then we can then, you know, achieve the peace of mind, the harmony, this life satisfaction. But this personal growth model kind of takes what I'm saying and adds validity to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the personal growth model starts with this idea of psychological safety. And it
Mm.
says that you have to be in a place where you are feeling safe and
Mm-hmm.
supported to go on a personal growth journey, to be intentional about that. And then you have to have the willingness to engage. And then you have to do all of these things, but it's a process, right? So some things you might do, some things you might not be ready to do. Some things maybe you've done already, as far as, you know, having personal accountability, being brave, being courageous, being willing to explore, being in service to yourself, but in service to others. Like that is the personal growth model. And so I feel like what I did was retrofit Sassy Chic Geek into that personal growth model.
Right.
So that's what sort of gives me the confidence to say that, look, it's not just me saying this because this is a nice thing to do, that no, scientists, you know, who have researched, you know, these topics are saying that these are the things that you need to do.
I love that. And it's so true. And because it doesn't sound fluffy then, right?
Right.
And because saying like we're going to start with intention, you know, in order to do self-development may sound fluffy to some people. But it also makes me remember that what you're doing is in Sastopia. All your characters, I think we have to bring this to the forefront because I do also talk about art, and you're an artist within yourself, and you've created how many characters do you have now?
Oh my God, probably over 100.
Okay. And I'll have to say, like, what we've also been hearing is people need to feel that they look similar to, you know, people, you know, in their community in order to trust and feel supported. And I think that was one of the magical things I thought of your genius brain, that you were like, I'm just going to create all these different beautiful people that are in this community that are like the role models for this self-development. So like imagining a middle school student really feeling identified and empowered, and and you saying here's the space to do it, like that is so amazing. Charise, you're doing such a great job. Like that is so inspiring. It leads me to my next question, because I think I know the answer. I would put it but in my own ways, but I want you to say it. um, do you consider yourself powerful, and how?
I absolutely consider myself
Mm.
powerful. But here's the thing, I think that we are all powerful. I think that some of us just embrace it. Right.
Mm.
And I am not saying that I'm, you know, this powerful person that, you know, has this magical wand to, you know, change the course of, you know, anybody's life, or, you know, those types of things. But I think that for me, my power is in my ability to share what I have to offer to the world. To me,
Mm.
that makes me feel powerful. That makes me feel powerful to feel like I have something of value to share with someone else.
Mm.
Mhm.
I like that. So then, can you say that you have? So I hear what you're saying. You think everyone has a power, which I love that. and your
Yes.
power to share. Do you have a specific superpower that if I were to show up in your workshops and meet you and see you, that I would be able to see? Like, what's your superpower?
Ooh. um, I really, I mean, I think that I'm genuine. I think that anybody
Mm,
that interacts with me knows that or they feel that right away. And it's funny because someone that I met recently said that I was bubbly.
mm,
And I thought that was funny because at one point in time, many people would not have ever used that term to describe me. They would probably use terms that had to have, all these different like exclamations, pound signal at to bleep out.
really?
Like,
Why is that? Why is that?
well,
Go
I mean,
there.
I think that like, when you're trying to show up to the world as your authentic self in a world that wants you to essentially assimilate to the what everyone else is doing, assimilate to like what society says you're supposed to be doing. And when you reject that, people look at you like, what are you doing? Like
Mm,
you're, and when you're unapologetic about rejecting that, I think it
mm,
really makes people uncomfortable.
mm,
And so, I think a lot of people thought I had an attitude. And I
mm.
probably did honestly have an attitude because I didn't know how to communicate what I was feeling, right?
Yep.
Like I knew that there was something amiss and about how I was showing up to the world. And I knew that it was causing me some frustration. And I'm sure that I probably lashed out on
Did you?
people
Oh my
who,
goodness.
yeah, on people who would be like, well, you should act like this. And I'd be like, I absolutely should not act like this. I mean, my business is called Sassy Chic Geek, right? I am a little bit sassy or a lot of it sassy.
Right,
So,
right.
I'm toned it down. I've had found a way to like, use it in a different way.
Slice it and dice it.
But yeah, so I think that like I think my superpower in a way is my authenticity.
Both ends of the coin, aren't they? Right? It could be shown
Mhm.
as like a negative or a positive, and your authentic self is saying, I'm going to show up no matter what, because that's who I am. It doesn't matter how you read me. And I also am hearing then again, you're bringing that into your world because you're normalizing in that world to be different, to show up, and that it is okay. So we're changing the narrative now, right?
Yeah,
You don't have to fit in the box anymore.
I'm tired. I can't do
Mm.
it anymore. I really can't.
Woo!
And I don't feel like I want to apologize to people for being me. It makes people uncomfortable. That is not my problem.
Mm.
Respectfully, it's not my problem that you feel uncomfortable around me.
I love that. I think it's come really well full circle on this conversation to truly understand who you are and how you're living this path of authenticity because it's baked in you and it's baked in the product and it's baked in every single thing that you're saying. So I think it was more than appropriate to have you on the first show. You're schooling me. I love that. All right.
You
So,
just bought it out of me, that's all.
right. Ooh, I like it. Good, 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 good. Got some good evening conversation to chill with and be motivated with and to inspire. So, the last question I'll ask everyone, I'll ask you is advice for the audience. How can we stay in the light?
Ooh. I would say that whatever anyone is experiencing, whatever anyone is feeling about themselves and how they show up into the world, that it is okay for them to step into that person. Because the one thing that I do know is that, and I promise you and anyone else, that when you step into the light, when you let go of those fears of what people will think about you, what your family might think about you, what society might think about you, you become the person that you are truly meant to be. And you will find that everything that you've done, the good, the bad, the trauma,
Mm,
all of that will make sense.
mm.
All of that will be clearer, and you will be able to forge a new path forward in a life that leaves you comfortable living in your own skin.
Whew! Got chills from that. Yes. Yes.
I'm ready. I'm ready to drop some knowledge up in here.
Yes, ma'am. I know. Thank you. I could talk to you all day. I've learned so much from you, and you have definitely inspired me. So thank you for your time. And I am honored to have spent this time with you today.
Thank you. It was such an honor, and I am so grateful to you and all that you're doing. And I just look forward to seeing you continue to step into your light, because I
Mm,
know that amazing things will come from it.
inspired by you. Thank you very much. Wow, wow, wow. That conversation with Charise was really good. I really enjoyed listening to her story. Some of the things that I'm reflecting on from that conversation is that I think her superpower is that she's a catalyst, because setting up an environment with tools, or like a whole new, I shouldn't even say an environment, like a whole new world, and then putting it like random people in a space and opening up a conversation to catalyze change and growth and power is really powerful. And I know that she can do it because she just has that energy. And so I just find that fascinating, and it definitely made me want to go to one of her workshops. I know that it would be very transformative, and I think it's super cool that it's completely taking a whole new look and feel. You know, there's this space that's happened for a long time, the meditation and the yoga and the wellness space, but I don't think that applies to everyone. Not everyone wants to be in that kind of vibe. And I think a transformation can occur in other environments too. So that is amazing that she has the courage and the strength to set up those types of workshops and environments. That was very impressive to me. I think that it is very cool that she was very vulnerable and open and honest about her path. And when she said, like, maybe sometimes people wouldn't say like all good things about her, and it made me reflect, because that's so true. Like, there were times like in my own life that happened, and to be able to honestly say that, and I think she says it in her power because she knows she's not like that anymore, and that she was just misunderstood. And I think that's the fuel that charges her even more, saying like everyone has it inside of them. And possibly when someone is just having a sense of tension or frustration in life or in the workplace, it's probably due to them not following their personal passion. And for her to say, okay, let's find it so that you can relieve that stress, and maybe we can have so many other new growth opportunities. That's cool. That vulnerability that she exposes, what helped empower her. And then that's why she's okay with being honest about that. So that was cool. And then the last thing that really impressed me is that, because I'm a visionary, I always have to have like a vision in front of me. And I like how she said that she doesn't necessarily, like, she has a big vision, right? But like next 10 steps, 30 steps, like she has it logistically in her business, but not necessarily. I just wasn't hearing that she's like tied to anything specific, because she's more tied to the feeling that she's having within. That was what was more rooted. Like, people may be rooted in different things, and her power that she's rooted in is that it just feels right to her. And that she's finding balance in her life now and prioritizing her personal health with music and fitness. I think that all comes together in a really positive way that's rooting her and pushing her forward. And I think that you can watch this and listen to this and see that same sense of power that you really can't articulate in any other way until you hear her powerful story and see her energy that she's radiating. And then hopefully one day see one of her workshops as well. So check out Sassy Chic Geek. Check out a local workshop or a virtual workshop. I know she's got tons of them. So thank you again so much, Charise. I wish you all the best. And to the listeners and to the audience, thanks for listening. And we look forward to our next podcast. Until then, stay in the light.